right, I'll just spend a quick 10 minutes talking about one of our other solutions. The guys have taken you through Verticast, so Retractor-Net, which are our extractable solutions. I'll talk about one of the other solutions, only about 10 minutes, and then we might take a couple of minutes break for a glass of water. This solution was designed in Australia. It's a fibre-to-the-home solution, typically used as a fibre-to-the-home solution, but other customers have used it in other ways. It's basically, we designed it for Telstra, for the Telstra network, so it is designed for the Australian network, but we've had a lot of other customers use it throughout Australia, and we're actually using it right throughout the world as well. I've got a short video of one of the installations we've done in the UK a number of years ago. As I said, it's part of our solutions network, our XSnet, the Verticast, the Sirocco, the Retractor-Net. So it's just another solution, another way of customers solving their problem. We did our first fibre-to-the-home rollout in Australia probably about 10 years ago now. It was the Western Power rollout, the Bright rollout, which some may remember. It was very early days for fibre-to-the-home. Even globally, it was very early days. We've done a lot of rollouts since, both in Australia and overseas. Some of the points that we've found that are good to focus on is any solution should be flexible. It should be quick to roll out, so your capex is low. It should be quick and efficient to add customers, and maintenance needs to be low, so you need to minimise your OPEX. It needs to be flexible in terms of what it delivers. Typically, most of our customers want it to deliver a typical pond. They can deliver triple play. For them, it's about making money. And then you need to be thinking about your migration path. What do you want your network to do in the future? Do you need to upgrade your splitters? Do you need to upgrade it to a point-to-point? So it needs to sort of take your migration path in mind as well. Just to give you a bit of a look at the network, and this is looking at sort of a basic centralised pond, which is fairly standard in Australia, but there's other people using the system in other ways. Typically start off with an FDH, work out where you want to put your FDH in the network. That typically houses your 1x30 two-way splitters. Your second part of your network is your fibre. You run your fibre out from your FDH down the street. Your fibres are passing your actual homes. The system's fairly generic in terms of what fibre it needs. Typically, we would say a reduced diameter cable is a good option. It can be our smart core, which is probably 90% of the rollouts we've done in Australia. But we've also done some rollouts with our flex tube cable in Australia, and it works very well because it's a reduced diameter. It's easier to loop in and out of the joints, and you can actually drop off more joints down the street. In the UK, most of the rollouts we've done there have been a flex tube type cable. So different regions use different technology. We've found that having a small cable, the ducts are fairly small out there. They're fairly congested. So in brownfield, it's important to have a small cable. But even in greenfield, the trenches are getting fairly crowded. You've got your gas, you've got your water, you've got your electricity. You've got your, the distance regulations between your different services. So again, there's not that much room out there. So a small cable can mean smaller ducts, smaller connectivity. That's fairly important. And also, we do recommend a nylon jacket, especially in Australia. You need your protection against termites. But a nylon jacket also aids in your installation. It's a very low friction material. Once you've got your cable running down the street, you need to then put your joints in. And I'll give you a bit of a look at the joint. Our joint's designed for plug and play. It's a fairly standard form factor joint. This is based on a joint that we've sold tens of thousands of units to many carriers around the world. BT is probably our biggest customer for this joint. But basically the way the joint works is you run the cable down the street. As I said, this is our standard smart core. Typically what we'd use is a 48 fibre cable, 8 fibres per tube. Basically what we do on day one, all splicing is done on day one. So we basically loop our cable in and out through the oval port. We'll break out one tube. That will take 8 fibres out of that one tube. The other fibres will actually move on down the... I don't have it. Let me see. That's all right. That's fine. The other tubes will move on down the street. And basically we do the splicing on day one. We splice to the 8 pigtails that are laid up on the tray, and that gives us our connection to our actual fibre connector, which gives it its plug and play ability. That's then locked back up. You never have to open that again, hopefully. The other side is what you've done in the factory. Again, that doesn't ever have to be open once it leaves the factory. But if you need access to that to do some maintenance, you can always do it. But typically what we've found is once it's spliced in, once it's locked away, it's in the pit, it's pretty much fit and forget. It'll fit in a small P5 pit. As you can see, we've got one setting up over here so you can see sort of what it looks like in the pit. That's a fairly standard installation. It's also got the dome joint. It's a fairly, as I said, it's a fairly standard joint, but you've got your O-ring protection once you lock your dome down. You've got your O-ring protection when you actually connect your customers. But if your O-rings did degrade over life, if you get a flooded pit, you've got your bubble of air in the dome, so it's sort of your second level of defence. So your optical end faces are protected by that bubble air. So it's a well sort of proven joint, and it works quite well. That just gives you a look of one we've done. That's a P5 pit. As you see, there's a fair bit of room for the joint. We've actually, if we have to, we put 2 joints in a pit. It gets a bit crowded. You do need a bit of room for cable management, but that's a fairly standard installation. One of the other things the joint actually provides as well is some of the hardened connectors being deployed don't actually allow you access to the end face. These actually swivel up and you can get a video scope in there, and actually if you are having some problems with the connection, you can actually get in there and have a bit of a look at the end face as well, so you've got that option as well. Once you've got your joints done, your splicing is pretty much done and dusted. Your splicers move down the street. You spliced in your joints on day one. We then, customer then rings up, I've built a house, I need you to connect me. We then bring the cable in. The cable's a pre-terminated cable. As we said, the custom connection's full plug and play, so I'll give you a look at it. Comes packaged basically, so it's one-man install. This is really designed so the guy who comes out is a Foxtel type guy. The skill level does not need to be high. He's in and out in an hour. Typically, $200, $250 customer install, so full plug and play. It's designed to go through 20mm conduits, 100mm bends. As I said, it was designed for a Telstra brownfield network. A second drop will go over the first one, so if you've got one cable installed to a home, you need a second one later on, you can easily install a second one over the first one. Nylon jacket, not many drop cables out there do have nylon jackets because they need to be fairly small cables, but we have a nylon jacket. Again, termite protection, but we also find it aids in installation, being a low friction surface. We would not recommend pulling this more than about 200 metres. But we did have one customer ring up and he needed to do a 550 metre drop and he wanted to do it plug and play. We didn't recommend he did it, but we made him a 550 metre lead and it pulled in fine. It is really an easy lead to work with. Just give you a look at how it works. Basically, in the pit, it's probably easiest to see over here. In the pit end, you've got basically, this is the end you leave in the pit. You basically take off the end and you have a SCAPC connector, so standard connector. That will, at the pit end, that will basically connect through there and you've got your customer connection very fast. That stays in the pit. You then haul the shroud end, what we call the hauling shroud end, to the actual house. I'll just show you what that looks like. This is an ultrasonically sealed small shroud and basically fully waterproof. So if you're pulling this through a flooded duct, it's fully waterproof, no water will get in. Cable cutters, side cutters, it pops open, it's a throwaway unit. You break the ultrasonic weld and you've got again, you've got your SCAPC connector. Take that up to the house, you've got a bit of cable management there. Take that into the house, plug it into your ONT. You don't need a separate fly lead from, say, a hardened connector to your ONT connector. It's basically plug and play. So you can save costs that way. Being a pre-terminated cable, you will end up with some slack, some excess coils. Typically, we will manage that in the pit, but again, because this is designed for one-man install, it's very easy to manage that. You pop that out. There's 35 metres on this, so you won't get left with 35 metres. It might be, say, a couple of metres, 5 metres. You then can basically grab that, a couple of cable ties on that, and typically what we do is that just hangs over the CLJ. So your cable management is quite fast and quite easy. Just to give you a look how that looks together. This is actually a real customer's pit and pipe diagram that they gave us, and they said, how do we do fibre to the home? So we said, look for a place to put your FDH. So typically that's the first thing you do. What makes sense? Where will I put my FDH? You then start running your cable down the street. As we said, it can be smart core, it can be flex tube, it can be a mini loose tube, and then you basically start splicing in your joints. Very easy to design. So your design costs are quite low. If you get out on site and what's out on site doesn't look anything like your pit and pipe diagram, it's very easy to make it up when you're out on site as well. So you can recover on site quite easy. Once you've spliced in all your joints, then as we said, the customer connection is plug and play. Customer calls up, connect me. Guy pops out with his pre-connectorised lead and plugs and play, and basically then work around your neighbourhood and connect the customers. So very easy with a couple of items, 5,000 metre reel of cable on the back of your truck, a truck full of your joints, and a pile of these, you can pretty much connect up a neighbourhood. We talked about a standard pond. It can be used in other ways. One of the customers that rolls this out in Perth actually buys the joint from us with a 1x4-way splitter pre-installed in the factory. So basically, in the factory, we pre-install a 1x4-way splitter. The customer basically runs his cable down the street, drops off one fibre, does one splice, locks the joint back up again, and then basically what they do is they grab one of these standard customer lead-in leads. That's the output leg of you've got 4 output legs of the 1x4-way splitter. You plug a standard lead in, plug and play. You run that lead to another one of these with a 1x8-way splitter in it. You basically bring the shroud end of the lead in there, you plug in, and then basically the output legs of your 8-way splitter are all connected to your customer connections, and then your final drop to your customers just plug and play. So basically, one splice and you can connect 32 homes. Again, very simple, very cheap. These guys don't do too much designing. They don't spend much time on designing. They pretty much get out there. They've got a van full of 1x4-way joints. They've got a van full of 1x8-way joints and a pile of connection cables, and they can basically just go throughout a suburb and connect up fairly fast, fairly cheap, and fairly flexible. Not just for fibre to the home. We basically, anywhere where you may want to defer your initial splicing and then your connection to customer, to active gear, this makes sense. We did a seminar like this in Perth a number of years ago, and there was a guy from Rio Tinto in the audience, and he says, I've got an idea for this. Basically, Rio Tinto had a problem where along their railway, they run a 60 fibre cable. But when they need to go in and plug some active gear in, they've got to arrange a time for the active gear guy to get to the splicing point, and also have a splicer on site there with him. In the middle of the desert, that was almost impossible for them. So what they decided to do is, when they run their cable, they break 4 fibres in every 20 kilometres or whatever, break 4 fibres in here and break them out on day one, do all their splicing on day one. And then if someone has to come along and connect some active gear, he basically comes along with an internal version of this lead, and it's plug and play. So the active gear guy can actually, doesn't have to do any splicing. He can connect up what he needs to connect up without having to have a splicer there. So again, saved them. They didn't care about cost, Rio Tinto. For them, it just saved them time and meant they could do a lot quicker. Another one was OPGW. Some of our OPGW customers have looked at actually breaking into their OPGW on day one, doing some splicing. So if you need to connect active gear to OPGW, it's a lot easier than actually accessing the OPGW, which is a nightmare once it's locked in. Some of the lessons we've learned over the years is look for a system that's simple and cost effective, easy to design and install. Minimise your CapEx, but also minimise your OpEx and your network planning. So flexible and simple. The fibre is deployed to customers on demand. Custom connection is quick, as we've just shown on this. And splice and breakout expenses are minimised due to the pre-connectorised hardware. Nylon jacket we would recommend. Again, this has been designed for the Australian conditions. 20mm conduit, 100mm bends. Flexibility, you can use this in a daisy chain network, you can use it in a star configuration, so really it's up to the customer how he wants to use it. It's a bit like a Lego block, you can use it however you want. And also try to keep everything as small as possible. You can keep your connectivity down, you can keep your duct size down as well. Some trade-offs we've found is if you're looking at a fibre to the home solution, some of the interesting things to look at is, does the technology allow for future flexibility? Is it easy to install and configure? Does the technology keep it simple? And does it lower your CapEx and OpEx? If you're looking at different systems, then you use this as a bit of a decision matrix, a ticker across. It's not a bad way to sort of look at different systems and see what they deliver. So this is a installation we did in the UK. I'll give you a little bit of a feel for how it works out in the field.
What we liked about Prismium was the fact that they were very keen to work with us to innovate on their solution so it actually met our exact requirements. Therefore, we were very keen on high quality products, and Prismium, we believe, were the best we saw. And we thought that the Prismium solution gave us the best flexible solution. We believe that Prismium solution, the Quickdraw solution, actually gives us that ability to have an unskilled or de-skilled end user connection.
The opportunity to be able to use it is a fantastic position to be in, and I would recommend it, as I do recommend it and talk about it an awful lot. But it's definitely a plus point. So overall, the fibre service that I receive, I'm very pleased with, and I would recommend it to anybody in the future without a doubt.
That gives you a little bit of a look how it's been used in the field. If there's any questions, what we might do is just take a quick couple of minute break, stretch the legs and have a glass of water. If there's any questions, just come and yell out. While we're having a quick break, I'll quickly show you how the cable's installed in the one we've got in the pit there.